What happens when one of America's most beloved talk show hosts comes face to face with a guest who refuses to play by the rules? In just 37 seconds, a casual conversation turned into one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. Kelly Clarkson sat across from Meghan Markle on what was supposed to be a lighthearted interview about charitable work and public life. The studio audience was packed, the cameras were rolling, and everything seemed picture perfect. But beneath the surface, tension was already building. Kelly opened with her signature warmth. "So Meghan, I'm really excited to have you here today. I know our audience has been looking forward to this conversation." Meghan smiled, but there was something cold behind it. "Well, I'm sure they have. People are always curious about my life." Kelly laughed it off, trying to keep things friendly. "Absolutely. So, let's talk about your recent projects. You've been working on some really interesting initiatives." "Interesting?" Meghan interrupted. "Kelly, let's be honest. My work isn't just interesting. It's groundbreaking. It's changing lives in ways most people in this industry could never understand." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Kelly's smile tightened, just slightly, but she pushed forward like the professional she is. "Of course, I didn't mean to diminish what you're doing at all. I think it's wonderful. Can you tell us more about it?" Meghan leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You know what the problem is with shows like this? Everyone wants the soundbite. Everyone wants the headline. But nobody actually wants to do the deep work of understanding what people like me go through." Kelly blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Well, that's actually why I wanted to have this conversation, to give you the space to really share your story." "Space?" Meghan's voice rose slightly. "Kelly, do you have any idea what it's like to have every single thing you do scrutinized? To have people question your motives constantly?" The host nodded sympathetically. "I can only imagine how difficult that must be. But I think a lot of people can relate to feeling misunderstood or judged." "Can they, though?" Meghan shot back. "Can your audience really relate to what I've been through?" "I don't think so." Kelly took a breath, maintaining her composure. "I think people face challenges in all different ways. Everyone's struggle is valid, even if the circumstances are different." Meghan laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. That's such an easy thing to say when you're sitting in your comfortable studio with your adoring fans. You have no idea what real pressure feels like. The audience gasped. This was not going the way anyone expected. Kelly's producer could be seen off camera, making concerned gestures, but Kelly remained calm. "Meghan, I've actually been in this industry for over 20 years. I've faced my own share of criticism and challenges. I'm not claiming our experiences are the same, but I do understand what it's like to be in the public eye." "Please," Meghan said dismissively. "You sing songs and make people laugh. I've had to navigate actual political institutions. I've had to deal with ancient protocols and people who wanted to see me fail. It's not even comparable." Kelly's jaw tightened. The warmth in her eyes was fading, replaced by something steelier. "I invited you here as a guest on my show. I've been nothing but respectful and kind. I'm not sure why you're being so hostile." "Hostile?" Meghan's voice dripped with condescension. "This is me being honest, Kelly. Maybe you're just not used to guests who don't fawn all over you." The studio had gone completely silent. Every audience member sat frozen, watching this disaster unfold in real time. Kelly leaned forward, her voice steady, but firm. "I treat every single guest who comes on this show with respect and dignity. I prepare for every interview. I care about the people who sit in that chair. But respect goes both ways, Meghan." Meghan rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, here we go. The moment someone doesn't play along with your perfect little show, you get defensive." "I'm not being defensive," Kelly replied, her voice still controlled. "I'm setting a boundary. You're being rude not just to me, but to everyone in this room who worked hard to make this interview happen." "Rude?" Meghan stood up slightly in her chair. "You want to talk about rude? How about bringing me on your show and then trying to make me sound just like everyone else? How about reducing my experiences to your level? Kelly shook her head slowly. That is not what I was doing. Not even close. I was trying to find common ground, trying to have a real conversation. Common ground, Meghan repeated mockingly. There is no common ground between us, Kelly. Our lives are completely different. Your biggest problem is probably choosing which designer dress to wear to the next awards show. The audience let out a collective gasp. This had crossed a line, and everyone knew it. Kelly stood up, her body language completely transformed. Gone was the friendly host. This was a woman who had reached her limit. Okay, we're done here, Kelly said firmly. I've given you every opportunity to have a meaningful conversation. I've been patient. I've been kind. But I will not sit here and be disrespected on my own show. Meghan laughed again, that same harsh sound. You're kicking me off? Do you have any idea who I am? Yes, I do, Kelly said, her voice like ice. You're someone who came onto my show and treated me and my team with contempt. You're someone who seems to think being difficult makes you important. And you're someone who is no longer welcome here. You can't be serious, Meghan said, her voice rising even higher. This is absurd. I came here in good faith. Kelly's eyebrows shot up. Good faith. Meghan, you've insulted me repeatedly since the moment and you sat down. You've dismissed my career. You've mocked my audience. And you've been condescending to everyone in this room. That's not good faith. I was being honest, Meghan insisted. Maybe that's something you're not familiar with in your bubble of positivity and fake smiles. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty, Kelly replied firmly. Honest people can disagree without being disrespectful. They can share hard truths without making it personal. What you're doing isn't honesty. It's just mean. Meghan scoffed. Of course you would see it that way. People like you always do. You want everyone to sugarcoat everything, to pretend like we're all on the same level. I've never pretended we're on the same level, Kelly said, her patience clearly wearing thinner. I've acknowledged multiple times that our experiences are different, but different doesn't mean one person deserves respect and the other doesn't. Respect is earned, Kelly, Meghan shot back, not just given freely. Kelly nodded slowly. You're absolutely right. Respect is earned. And in the last 15 minutes, you've done everything possible to lose mine. This is unbelievable, Meghan said, standing up fully now. You invite me here. You ask invasive questions. And then you act like I'm the problem? Invasive questions? Kelly repeated, genuinely shocked. I asked you about your charity work. That's literally it. One question about your charity work. Everything else has been you attacking me unprovoked. Oh, please, Meghan waved her hand dismissively. You and I both know what you were really trying to do. You were trying to make me look ordinary, trying to bring me down to your level. Kelly's eyes flashed with anger now. My level? Meghan, I've won multiple Grammys. I've sold millions of albums. I've built a successful talk show from the ground up. I'm not intimidated by you, and I'm certainly not trying to bring you anywhere. I was trying to have a conversation. A conversation, Meghan mocked. You wanted sound bites. You wanted me to be grateful for the opportunity to sit in your little chair and play nice for your cameras. I wanted you to be a decent human being, Kelly said flatly. That's all. Just decent. And you couldn't even manage that. Kelly didn't back down an inch. I asked you about your charity work, Meghan. That's it. Everything else has been you attacking me and everyone in this room. I've hosted hundreds of guests. I've never had to do this before. That should tell you something. It tells me that everyone else was too afraid to be real with you, Meghan retorted. Too worried about their image to tell you the truth. The truth about what? Kelly demanded. What truth are you telling me, Meghan? That you think you're better than everyone else? That you think common courtesy doesn't apply to you? Because if that's your truth, then yeah, maybe other guests were smart enough not to share it. Meghan's face flushed darker. You have no idea what I've sacrificed, what I've given up, what I've endured. You're right. I don't, Kelly said, her voice softening just a fraction. And I genuinely would have loved to hear about it. That's why I invited you here. But instead of sharing your story, you've spent this entire time putting me down, and I'm done with it. Of course you're done, Meghan said bitterly. The moment someone doesn't worship you, you shut them down. Kelly shook her head firmly. That's not what this is. I've had guests disagree with me. I've had guests challenge me. I've had guests who've made me think differently about things. But they did it with respect. They did it with kindness. You're doing it with contempt, and that's the difference. It tells me that you can't handle someone who doesn't kiss your feet, Meghan snapped. No, Kelly corrected. It tells you that basic human decency matters. It tells you that being famous or important doesn't give you the right to treat people badly. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. I don't need this. I have plenty of other platforms where people actually appreciate what I have to say. Then I suggest you use those platforms, Kelly said coolly, because this interview is over. Fine by me, Meghan said, her voice dripping with disdain. This show is beneath me anyway. Kelly gestured toward the exit. The door is right there. Meghan turned to walk away, but couldn't resist one final jab. You know what, Kelly? You think you're America's sweetheart, but you're just another person who can't handle the truth. You want everyone to be nice and polite and fake. Well, I'm not fake. Kelly's response was measured and devastating. No, you're not fake. You're just mean. And there's a big difference between being authentic and being cruel. I hope you figure that out someday. The color drained from Meghan's face. For the first time in the entire exchange, she seemed at a loss for words, but only for a moment. How dare you, she began, but Kelly cut her off. I dare, because this is my show, my team, my audience, and I protect all of them, including from guests who come here looking for a fight instead of a conversation. Meghan's face flushed red with anger. You'll regret this, Kelly. Do you know how this is going to look? Kicking me off your show? Kelly shrugged, completely unbothered. I'm comfortable with my decision. I can sleep at night knowing I stood up for myself and my team. Can you say the same about how you've behaved here today? I don't owe you anything, Meghan hissed. I don't owe anyone anything. You're right, Kelly agreed. You don't owe me anything. But basic respect isn't something you owe. It's something you give freely if you're a decent person. And right now, you're showing everyone exactly who you are. Meghan looked around the studio as if expecting someone to come to her defense. The audience sat in stunned silence. The crew members averted their eyes. No one was coming to rescue her from this moment she had created. This is ridiculous, Meghan muttered, adjusting her jacket. Absolutely ridiculous. What's ridiculous, Kelly countered, is that you came here with an agenda. You didn't want to have a conversation. You wanted to prove something. And the only thing you've proven is that fame without kindness is just noise. Meghan's eyes narrowed. You think you're so wise, don't you? So above it all? No, Kelly said simply. I just think kindness matters. I think treating people well matters. And I think you forgot that somewhere along the way. I haven't forgotten anything, Meghan snapped. I've just learned that nice gets you nowhere. Nice gets you walked all over. Kelly's expression softened, just slightly, almost pitying. That's really sad, Meghan. Truly. Because nice has gotten me everywhere. Nice has built this show. Nice has created this community. And nice will still be here long after you walk out that door. Meghan opened her mouth to respond, but seemed to realize she had nothing left to say that wouldn't make things worse. She turned sharply on her heel and began walking toward the exit. But Kelly wasn't quite finished. Her voice rang out across the studio one last time. I genuinely hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, but I don't think you'll find it by tearing other people down. Meghan paused at the door, her back still to the camera and to Kelly. For a moment, it seemed like she might turn around. Like she might apologize, or at least acknowledge what had happened. But instead, she pushed through the door and disappeared into the hallway. The studio remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Kelly stood there, visibly shaking slightly from the adrenaline, but her head held high. Then, slowly, one person in the audience began to clap. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the entire studio was on their feet, giving Kelly a standing ovation. Kelly's eyes welled up with tears, but she smiled through them. She waved her hand dismissively, trying to downplay the moment, but the audience wouldn't stop. They clapped louder, cheering for a host who had just shown them what it looks like to stand up for yourself with grace and strength. When the applause finally died down and everyone returned to their seats, Kelly took a deep breath and looked directly into the camera. "Well," she said with a shaky laugh, "that's not how I saw this afternoon going." The audience laughed, the tension in the room finally breaking. Kelly sat back down in her chair, smoothing her dress. "You know, I've been doing this show for a long time, and I love it. I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories. I love finding connection and common ground. But sometimes, despite your best efforts, someone just isn't interested in meeting you halfway." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I never want to be the kind of person who can't handle disagreement or different perspectives. That's not what this was about. This was about basic respect, and I think we all deserve that, whether we're famous or not, whether we're on television or not." The audience murmured in agreement. Kelly nodded, seemingly gathering herself. "I'm sorry you all had to witness that. You came here for a fun show, and instead you got, well, whatever that was." "We love you, Kelly," someone shouted from the audience, and others immediately echoed the sentiment. Kelly pressed her hand to her heart. "Thank you. That means more than you know. And I want you to know that I didn't make that decision lightly. I've never asked a guest to leave before. But I also can't sit here and pretend that kind of behavior is okay." She looked around at her team, at the cameras, at the audience members who had become like family over the years. This show is built on kindness. It's built on real conversations and genuine moments. And I'm not willing to compromise that. Not for anyone, no matter how famous or important they think they are. The audience applauded again, shorter this time, but just as heartfelt. Kelly smiled gratefully. "Okay," she said, clapping her hands together. "Let's try to salvage what's left of today's show, shall we?" But before they could move on, Kelly added one more thought. "You know what I keep thinking about? I keep thinking about all the young people who might be watching this. And I want them to know that it's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to say no. It's okay to set boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "You don't have to accept poor treatment from anyone. You don't have to smile and nod when someone is being cruel. You can be kind and still be strong. You can be gracious and still protect yourself." The audience was completely silent again, but this time it was the silence of people truly listening, truly absorbing what was being said. I think sometimes we get confused about what strength looks like. We think it's about never showing emotion or never being affected by things. But real strength is standing up for what's right, even when your hands are shaking, even when you're scared of how it's going to look. Kelly's voice wavered slightly. "And I'll be honest with you, I am scared about how this is going to look. I'm scared about the headlines and the think pieces and all of it. But I'm more scared of becoming someone who lets people treat me badly just because I'm worried about my image." She took a sip of water from the mug on her side table, her hands steadier now. "My team works so hard on this show. The producers, the crew, the writers, everyone. They pour their hearts into making something special every single day. And they don't deserve to watch their boss get disrespected. They don't deserve to feel like their work doesn't matter." Kelly looked off camera toward where her team stood. "Thank you for having my back. Always. There was a moment where you could hear some crew members responding, their voices too quiet for the microphone to pick up clearly, but the emotion was evident. Turning back to the audience, Kelly managed a real smile this time. You know what the crazy thing is? I really did want to have a good conversation with her. I thought we could talk about important things, about using your platform for good, about navigating public life. I had so many questions prepared. She shook her head ruefully. But I guess some people just aren't interested in that kind of dialogue, and that's their choice. All I can control is how I respond. The audience seemed to collectively exhale, as if they'd all been holding their breath throughout this entire ordeal. Kelly stood up again, this time with more confidence. All right, I think we've spent enough time on that disaster. We've got a show to do, and I've got an amazing musical guest waiting backstage who's probably wondering what on earth is happening out here. The audience laughed, the mood finally lifting. Kelly grinned, and for the first time since Meghan walked out, she looked like herself again. Let's take a quick break, reset, and come back with something actually enjoyable. Sound good? The audience cheered enthusiastically. As the cameras cut and the show went to commercial, Kelly sat back down heavily in her chair. Her producer rushed over, and they had a quick, intense conversation that the audience couldn't quite hear. Kelly nodded several times, then waved her producer away with a reassuring smile. What had started as a routine interview had turned into something nobody could have predicted. A moment that showed the world what happens when kindness meets cruelty, when professionalism meets entitlement, and when someone finally says, enough is enough. Kelly Clarkson had drawn a line in the sand, and she hadn't wavered for a second. The show eventually continued, and Kelly delivered one of her best episodes despite everything. She sang with her musical guest, she laughed with her audience, and she reminded everyone why they loved her in the first place. But that moment, those 37 seconds when everything changed, would be replayed and discussed for a very long time. Because sometimes the most important thing a person can do is stand up and say no. No to disrespect. No to cruelty. No to the idea that fame or status gives anyone the right to treat others poorly. And Kelly Clarkson had done exactly that in front of millions of people, without hesitation and without apology.